Hi again. I'm Mitzi Van Cleve, and it's been a really long time since I posted a video to YouTube, but I'm finally getting back at it. Life just kind of gets in the way sometimes. The last talk I did on OCD was referencing a specific kind of OCD called pure O, and I was talking about how the mind of a person with this kind of OCD has kind of a flytrap mind, in that their brain is overly excited, overly stimulated as to fight or flight, and therefore it's kind of like a fly trap that is hungry. What it's hungry for is something to chew on. There's all this free-floating anxiety can be experienced with physical symptoms like shaking in the morning, hunger, just a free-floating sense of dread, stomach issues, just all kinds of things, even panic attacks. But eventually a person with OCD will latch onto a theme, because the mind typically needs something to chew on to expend all that excess anxiety on. So I left off, talking about how a thought gets stuck in the mind, and how the brain can be kind of like a fly trap. It's just looking for something to chew on. What I wanted to talk about, the second half of that, is the fly that comes into the fly trap, which is the actual thought or obsession that develops in the person with OCD. And I guess I like analogies when I'm dealing with my OCD, because it kind of gives me a tool to look back on and think about, well, the fly represents the thought, the fly trap represents my brain and how it's responding to the thought. And I need to learn what to do about the fly when it wanders in, and the fly trap kind of clamps down on it, and it's stuck in my mind. So in thinking about flies and bugs in particular, before I get into what to do and what not to do about the fly, with OCD, when you first develop an obsessional theme, there's always a fear response when it comes into the mind. And we think of these themes and these unwanted thoughts as being intrusive. We don't want them in there. We struggle against them. And that is part of what we don't want to do in response to the fly, which is the OCD thought. But what happens when we do respond is that we can take that particular issue and it becomes bigger. So if we're using the bug analogy that I like to use, what happens is, in the beginning, the thought might just be kind of like a gnat, which is, annoying. You're aware of it, it's there, and it's something that you would rather not have bugging you, so to speak. But if you begin to respond to the thought in any way, pay attention to it, fight against it, ruminate about it, try to solve it, try to gain reassurance, that bug, which is the OCD thought, which is just a gnat, will kind of morph into a more annoying type bug. So it might go from, if we keep doing this, responding to it, seeking reassurance, and doing all these things, it can go from like a gnat to a fly, which is obviously more noisy and we're more aware of it, and from a fly to an insect, maybe like a mosquito, which bites you and flies around and buzzes and is also irritating, but it can leave just an aftermath of like an itch where you just feel, I've got to scratch this. It's always there and you're aware of it. And then if you continue to attend to the thought as represented by the bug, it can eventually turn into a bug that would be something like a bee, and maybe the kind of bee that the more you swat at it and the more you pay attention to it, it stings you over and over. And by swatting at it, by attending to it, ruminating, fighting against it, seeking reassurance, you are making it bigger in your mind. And that's kind of how OCD works. So the analogy that I've used in order to respond to the bugs of my OCD is to just tell myself, once I become aware this is an OCD thing, to put down the fly swatter and to not make the theme or the thought bigger by attending to it, because that's what's key with this disorder. First off, you have to discern this is an intrusive, unwanted thought of OCD. And one of the ways of discerning that is the emotional response to it. Typically, the emotional response is going to be that of extreme fear, of feeling like this is really bad. I've got to figure out whether or not this is true. I've got to find out how to get rid of this thought. So you might fight against it. I've got to solve this question. I have this lingering doubt. It's driving me crazy. I have to get certainty. And the more you do that, you are, in a sense, you have this fly trap brain, and the thought is stuck in there. It's the fly. Your brain's clamped down on it, but you, by swatting at it and attending to it by all the ways I just mentioned, are making it actually worse. And this is how OCD gets worse. So what you're doing when you do that is you are making that fly trap stronger, and you're making the thought more important, more valid. It becomes, you're more aware of it. I mean, for instance, if a bee was stinging you continually, you would be very aware of it. And with OCD, when it gets really bad, the moment your eyes pop open in the morning, you're aware of this thought, which, is represented by this annoying bug in my analogy. Now, the thing that you have to learn to do, which is the hardest, is no matter how bad this intrusive or unwanted thought has become, you have to force yourself to put down the fly swatter. You have to say, I'm going to allow it. I can hear it. It causes fear. I don't like the way it makes me feel. But if I attend to it, if I fight against it, do any of the things that I mentioned, argue, solve, seek reassurance, I'm making it so much worse, because I'm giving it weight and validity. I'm chasing it around in my brain. And the more I do with that, the more my brain says, hey, this is really important. Pay attention to this. You need to solve this. And that's why it's front and center all the time. So my analogy is, put down the fly swatter. Don't chase it. Allow it to be there. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah, it really is. Is it making me feel anxious? But emotions do not equal truth or reality. And you have to recognize that the emotion that you're feeling is an inordinate or exaggerated response to an unwanted and intrusive thought. So you have to ignore it, let it be there, let it buzz around, distract yourself by doing something else. And the more you practice that, the less power these thoughts have over you. And over time, the word professionals would use is that it becomes extinguished or extinct in the brain, to the point where, yeah, you might think of it occasionally, but it doesn't have the power to torment you that it did before. So I guess what I'm saying is, let your OCD bug that's entered your flytrap mind die a natural death, because the more you respond to it and the more you attend to it, the worse you're going to feel. So I just wanted to finally get around to that. I apologize for this super long break in talking about this. My life has just been pretty full since last fall, and although this is a very important thing to me, I wasn't able to really get back at it until just now. I also want to invite you to check out my book on Amazon.com. It's only in a Kindle ebook format now, but you can download it to all sorts of applications on iPads, iPhones, your computer, and through free reading apps. And the book is only $3.99, so please check it out if any of this is relatable to you, if you think what I've shared in my story and experiences would be helpful to you. You can find it, just go to Amazon.com, write in Strivings Within, Mitzi Van Cleve in the search, and it should pop right up, and you can read the free sample, see if it kind of hooks you in. And then please, if it does, if you think it will help you, go ahead and give it a read, and then I would love any feedback from whether or not it helped you or not. Thanks for taking the time to listen to my fly and fly trap analogy about how I manage my OCD, and we'll talk again on another topic. Thanks.